Well, we want to thank Cindy Whitney and Mark Weiss for being out there on Saturday. I understand the Woodstock event was very popular. It looks like they had a great time out there. We'll be showing you segments throughout our program of people having a great time out there at Woodstock. Be sure to enjoy many of these recreational events, especially the special events. They really have great turnouts and terrific entertainment, food, and it's always nice to see your neighbors. And speaking of nice to see your neighbors, good to see Bill Walsh here. You're with Third Mutual. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, you bet. Okay. Plenty of things happening at Third Mutual. That solar program that y'all started, what, about a year and a half ago, seems like?
Right.
How's that going so far?
It's going well. We finally got all of the 12 buildings up and running and given permission by Southern California Edison to permission to operate and start generating electricity. So that said, it was part of the long stretched out process of getting solar on all those buildings is partly related to some of the infrastructure problems we have in the community with our electricity.
Right.
And I'm going to be talking about a number of different areas that's related to. And then I will turn to the thing that you mentioned this Thursday, the outage. Is directly related to a finding by the engineering group at Southern California Edison that the cable that they had running from the 2394 building into the transformer was inadequate to handle the load of the solar that we were putting on to the SCE grid.
Wow.
And this should have been caught in their engineering much before they gave us permission to operate. Unfortunately, that transformer supports 4 elevators in 4 different buildings, the 2393, 2394, 2395, and 2396.
Wow.
So when they take that transformer offline, it's going to affect elevators at least in those 4 buildings. And they haven't given us, they've given us, total it's going to take 4 hours, but they haven't yet given us the time, whether it's going to be 8 to 12 or 12 to 4 or whatever.
Right.
And VMS staff is going to be sending out a notice to all the residents in those buildings.
Now it's interesting, it's the cable that's taking the solar power and giving it back to SCE and putting it back on the grid instead of the other way around.
Right. Well, when this was designed 50 years ago, nobody thought about, they all thought electricity is going to flow one way from the SCE grid into our buildings, and then nobody ever thought about the idea of actually sending electricity back down to Edison. So the world has changed, and we discovered a lot of things about the state of our electrical system in the community
and infrastructure. Absolutely.
The infrastructure.
Let's take a look at some of those photos. I know you brought a couple, and we just want to make sure that the residents realize, which buildings we're talking about. I believe you brought a couple. There's 2393, and there's obviously going to be a couple of buildings associated with this in the nearby area, right?
Right. And notice, since you brought this up, notice that new sign on the building.
Can see it.
It's a pilot program. We decided that on the 81 3-story buildings that we really need to upgrade the address signs. And in fact, we need upgrades on all of the signage. For it's miserable trying to get around here in the daytime, let alone at night.
It is. You all asked me to fly the drone to videotape these buildings. And a lot of these signs are above the garage area. So you've already either passed it or you really don't look in that area unless you're driving into the garage area. So yeah, that really does help quite a bit.
And so anybody that wants to come out and see this, drive by and have a look at it. We've got some up in Gate 14 and the 4010 building, I think, and the 4015 building. But they really are an improvement in terms of visual. I have not been out at night to see how well these reflect light. We're also looking at a backlit sign. It's a lot more expensive, and we're hoping that this will be adequate because it's a lot less expensive.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the Maintenance and Construction Committee, led by Bert Moldau, is going to be dealing with signage for maybe even painting curbs with addresses on them. There's a few of them been painted up on Bahia Blanca West. As you come up the hill, you can see the addresses, and it's a little better than trying to look up and see them. Cul-de-sac 27, whatever. On the signage you're going by.
Back in the old days, the Cub Scouts would come by and with their little stencil, remember, and spray paint your curb.
That's right.
That was always great to see that.
Never mind. I'm not going to say about it. I thought I was old. Never mind.
Let's see a couple other pictures because we want to make sure that the people that live in these buildings, building 3500 will also be affected. And let's go ahead and go through. 4015, that's another Garden Village style building, right? Do you have 12?
This is actually an LH21.
LH21, okay. And then I think there's one more, 4010.
That's a garden villa. One of the things that is going to happen is that each of these buildings has a different orientation to the road or whatever cul-de-sac they're on. So we're going to have to probably walk most of these. Staff is going to have to walk these and figure out what the best place to put the signage on. And we may even resort to putting some signs out in the lawn because it's just, the building is so tucked away, we can't see it. But anyway, it's an effort to make finding your way around here a little better.
Absolutely. So when they do the maintenance on August 3rd, how will you notify the residents in those buildings that it's going to be 8 o'clock in the morning or when it will be?
Now, I don't know whether it's going to be done with, whether they're going to do it electronically through a robocall or whether they're going to send a letter. And they may do both.
Right.
So the residents should be known. I sent a letter to the president of the Gardenville Association, which includes members of the LH21s as well, and let her know what was going to happen. And she said she would contact the building captains.
Great.
So we're trying every way we know how to make sure people are informed.
Okay, sounds great. What else is going on at Third Mutual you want to share with the residents?
Well, I've come here 7 or 8, 9 times in the last year and a half since I've been on the board, and I always come with something about energy, and so I thought I would talk a little about our efforts to acquire the 768 streetlights in Laguna, in Third Mutual in Laguna Woods. We'd have to acquire them from Edison, Southern California Edison, and the main reason we really want to acquire them is because Edison has, we want to be able to put LED lights on these poles as well as arms on many of them that run along the main thoroughfares like Carrizo, Sociega, Via Mariposa, those areas. And Edison won't do it. They've resisted that. And also, even though we can look at it, it'd probably save us $50,000 a year in tariff fees by owning the poles ourselves. The real motivation here is by taking control of them ourselves, that we can improve the lighting. That is the goal here. So we've got till October 12th to make a decision. We've had our lawyer look at the contract. We've had Ernesto Munoz look at the contract, and he has contacted communities like Huntington Beach, Tustin. When I was in San Diego on the 1st of June, I talked to somebody from Norwalk. It's the same contract. Everybody's got the same contract, and it's a miserable contract. It's a contract, if you weren't dealing with Southern California Edison,
you have nowhere else to go.
You would never. That's right. And they've basically told us, take it or leave it. They've told every municipality that's approached them about this, take it or leave it. And there are 50 municipalities that have signed up to do it because they realize not only is it cost savings, but then they can control how their lighting is and what they can do with it. And that is the main reason. We had the sidebar issue about it too, is that we pull teeth trying to get light bulbs replaced. And we even got a pole that's been totally missing. It got hit by a tree back in the big storms at the early part of the year. It still hasn't been replaced. So it's things like that that are leading this. But we have to talk. We're going to be in more discussions about this. And in fact, tomorrow, if people want to come, it's the Sycamore Room. We're actually having a consultant coming down from the Bay Area, Sage Renewable Energy Company, and they're going to come down and talk to us about the different possibilities that we can look at in terms of energy saving in the community. So.
And that really shows, how involved the directors are in trying to save money, not only for, the entire community, but obviously for your mutual. And if you can pull that off in the next couple of months and take control of those polls, then people will start to have some, be able to see and be able to, have that one pole that's down. I mean, it's down, and residents really reflect that onto VMS and onto the boards because they feel we're responsible for everything within the walls.
That's right.
But that is something that Edison just doesn't want to take care of.
Right, and it's this whole issue with the cabling. It's a big corporation that's it's departmentalized, and the left hand many times doesn't know what the right hand's doing. And having worked in one of those type of bureaucracies, I fully understand.
Right. And we really are a large community. We feel we are. We're a large HOA.
Right.
But when you talk about cities of 18,000 people to Edison, that doesn't really,
I know.
hit their radar.
When you talk about 768 light
Thousand,
poles that
yeah.
we're going to buy, you know.
Right, yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
In fact, it was kind of interesting that they wouldn't let us join the program because we're not a municipality,
Right.
in theory. So.
Electric cars too. You want to talk about electric?
Yeah, I
electric
think
vehicles?
Annette Sewell talked about some of that. There's a task force going on to how do we deal with electric vehicles in general, golf carts and plug-in electric vehicles. How do we deal with that in particularly areas like carports and underground garages where everyone's using common area electricity. It's electricity supplied and paid for by the Third Mutual. You know, in my own, I have a garage in my unit, and I actually have an electric car. And my wife, I get the privilege of driving it once in a while, but my wife pulls it in, and when she's low on it, she just plugs it in the wall.
Yeah.
And it's a slow charging.
Yeah.
You only get, it takes an hour to get 4 miles worth of charging on it. But it's called an EV1. What's happening now is all these automakers are coming out with EV2s, which can get 24 miles in an hour. You would not want to charge a Tesla that gets 300 miles on a charge. Trying to charge it up at 4 miles per hour, you know,
Right.
be forever. So in a way, many of any Tesla that's parked in the common area wouldn't use the 120 volt system that we have in the garages and carports. But we still do have EV1s like the car my wife and I drive, or my wife drives, and or plug-in electric vehicles. You got hybrids,
Right.
you know, with.
Have you found a spike within those units? Are you able to kind of track that, or is it just kind
Not-
of one large kilowatt bill, basically?
No, it's just one large kilowatt
Yeah.
bill. But one of the things that we're also concerned about are golf carts and their battery chargers that are sitting on the ground, or people who leave extension cords permanently on the floor of these buildings, because in big rainstorms. Now, this not this time of year is a big a deal, but if you start putting moisture together with this electricity,
Right.
you know, you got a problem. So I think more on this plug-in electric vehicle thing that I really wanted to stress is that Tim Moy and his security and the compliance people are really looking when they're driving through the community in the garages and by the carports. They're checking to see that there aren't safety problems in
Right.
these. So, and you can get fined. So
Okay.
just be aware.
Right.
But the task force that Annette's going to lead is going to try to figure out. You've got the same problem with a limited electric infrastructure in the community, where you've got people coming in and they're buying 1 and 2 golf carts, and all of a sudden there's not enough space in the garage.
Right.
There's not enough outlets to plug these on,
Yeah.
and there's a convenience factor. Some of the outlets are not in a convenient place to charge,
Right.
so they're running extension cords, and we have a lot of empathy for that. So I think we're going to define the problem with a small group of people, and probably, you know, and there's going to be resident advisors on this task force, and down the road we're going to invite the community to make comment, because we're going to have to find some solutions, and it may cost us some money. So,
Absolutely.
So,
And it's just a growing industry. So you know, pretty soon there won't be gas vehicles. Probably, you know, my children will not be driving gas vehicles. Some of them won't even be driving. They'll just Uber or Lyft or whatever happens to be there at that point. But a lot of people are going to be using electric vehicles.
yes,
Yeah.
I think so. I think that's the wave. I've seen some articles or commentary on, you know, going to hydrogen vehicles, and the downside, the whole idea behind the solar on the buildings and the idea of electric vehicles is to get out of the fossil fuel paradigm, get out of that model, because we've got electricity from the sun and wind,
Right.
and you know, we even have thermal sources of
We're
it.
fortunate to live in an area in the country that can provide all of those things for us.
That's right.
So we might as well utilize it.
That's right, and that's the goal.
Right.
And it also sends a message to anybody that wants to come here that we do care, and that, you know, and we see the benefits of being able to use essentially free energy.
Okay, I only have like 1 minute with you, but I do want to be sure and mention that the board is looking for candidates to run for the upcoming election. So that's an important issue at this time as well.
Right, and one other thing is a week from Friday, on the 11th of August, we're going to talk about the Third Mutual Business Plan for 2018.
Okay.
And so we're talking budgets, we're talking about what's going to impact your assessment and for 2018. So we invite people. It's going to be televised. It's going to be in the boardroom, and I believe it starts at 9:30 in the morning on Friday the 11th.
Right. Okay.
That's all I had to say.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the program today.
Well, thank you.
Great to see you. You got a busy day today because you need to now get off to the workshop at 9 o'clock.
I do.
Hey, we'll be right back right after this break, and we'll be bringing you Robert's Rules with Joan Milliman.
Thanks.